I want to thank the panel. I want to thank the audience. This is an esteemed group. We have an excellent distribution here. Actually, we'll do it real quick. You're allowed to introduce yourself and who you work for, and then I'll let...
SVP of Sales, Cadence Technology, formerly Black Arrow.
I'm Dave Crammon from NBC.
And I'm Valerie McMorrin from Starcom Media Best.
And I'm Mark Finney from Bell Media.
Barry Marcus from Chorus.
Claudio Marquez from Visible World, and I head up research and new initiatives.
So we put our Marcuses next to each other, which wasn't something we planned to do. And we also put our media buyers next to each other. But this is good. We have representations from tech. Oh, that's great. Can you do that? Can you do that for the camera? No, it's good that we have the people who actually do the spending. We have distribution, we have technology, and we have media buying, which is excellent. One of the ways we wanted to start, and we've heard a couple of times, is that there's quite a bit of cord cutting apparently happening in this country. According to the CBC, 190,000 Canadians ended their ties with traditional television in 2015. That's an 80% increase from the previous year when 105,000 people cut the cord. Now, this is a small number relative to the number of subscribing television households, but it seems to be a trend. I'd like to know first from the people who distribute television. Maybe we'll start with Mark from Bell. Might as well hit you right out of the gate. What does this mean to you as someone who has millions of television subscribers?
Well, I think the thing is, as it pertains to this discussion, really what we've got to think about is kind of putting in the building. I mean, clearly if that trend continues, we can think about how we address ads differently and what different devices we address them on. However, a lot of the stuff that we'd have to do, a lot of the kind of building blocks for the work we have to put in place are very similar. So what we're about is actually thinking about what those building blocks are, when can we do them, and at the same time, how can we create value for advertisers through the process of building them and the products that we actually build. I think with all these kind of things, it's kind of easy to get sucked into, I always say this, looking for firm answers, and this is how it's going to be, and this is how many years it will take. And the honest answer is that I don't know where this trend will actually lead to, and I suspect that no one really does either. So I think a lot of the work we have to do is going to be the same regardless of what the different trends and what the different forces are.
So I'm going to go to Barry, who represents Shaw, now Chorus Media. Sorry, still new, still getting used to it. So for you, you're seeing the shift as well in terms of consumer behavior, not necessarily people watching less television, but more IP-based video, and this will come back around to addressability. You're making investments. There were some announcements just this past week. If you want to tell us what you're doing, and then we'll be able to correlate some of this.
Well, we're doing a fair bit. We announced the Programmatic initiative, with Visible World, which we talked about. We're doing linear optimization using set-top box data. We're doing dynamic ad insertion on VOD as a trial. And we're doing addressable on a small-scale trial. So we're trying to maximize the value of the audience as it is, as the programming team and the marketing teams all figure out how to keep it big.
So we just heard two great presentations that there are new categories and additional investment from some categories because of this type of addressability. So now I'm going to go to the people who actually spend on behalf of brands, and it's a jump for either of you. When you're speaking to the brands about these new opportunities in sort of emerging channels, are you finding you're able to acquire net new monies, or it's really a distribution? And are you able to, secondarily, and either of you can take this, is any of this activating some of your customers who may not have wanted to invest in video before?
Well,
Sure.
I mean, there's no new money, right? It's all the same money, whether it goes into digital or TV or radio or anything else. And we don't, essentially, when we were talking about what are we doing with this new universe or cord cutters, we're spending less in TV. So sorry about that, all like TV guys. But that's the reality of it. Less people watching, less money goes into it.
So there's no new money, but we did hear from Jamie in the UK that he seems to be attracting money from categories and advertisers who hadn't been investing in television before. But I'd like to hear from you. Is there any new money?
There's no net new money. I would echo the same thought. Starcom MediaVest in the US has been, testing and learning in this space of addressability for the past 10 years now. And similar findings, that were just purported in the previous presentation, there are best practices. It's not about, I think we try to have, such black and white fundamentals and findings. It's not all addressable and give up mass. I think it's a combination of the two and knowing when to apply either. And so, it's not net new money, but what we did find in the US is that a lot of the addressable clients were new to TV. So they were making up the bulk of the addressable tests. But certainly when you talk about data, and this is what I think we're all about, we speak about data ad nauseum, but it's about if it's data that helps us make smarter buying and planning decisions in linear television, isn't that where we want to be? It's about precision targeting and business outcomes. And if the business results that we've seen of addressability in the US, why wouldn't we want to go there? Why wouldn't we want to embrace it? Is it going to be easy? Is it going to be cheap? The infrastructure and the resources? No. But can we wait? I don't think so. And I don't think the broadcasters here in this marketplace can wait.
So I'm going to issue this to Barry. Do we have the right kind of data to improve the efficiency of television planning? And then the next question I'll get to, depending on your answer. Do we even have the data sets now to make the planning better?
I think we do. We have, as Greg mentioned earlier, a sample of 500,000 households, and privacy protected. I always say privacy protected. And then that's anonymously combined with third-party data at this point. So we can use Environics in our case, as opposed to Axiom or Experian in the US, and start to see what people are watching at the postal code level. It's as granular as we get, and who they are. And that allows us to make planning decisions that we think will give advertisers a bigger proportion of their true target, which is the objective in that one.
So we just heard that addressability seems to be focused around outcome-based and increased sales. So back to the buy side and Dave, and from Starcom, I'm curious, is there a demand for that sort of outcome-based reconciliation of ROI and investment in television, or are we not at that point where there's that type of demand?
I think there's an ask. I'm not sure there's a demand for it. You can see it's great that Jamie was here, replacing Mike and swearing a lot and stuff. But it's complicated, right? So it's going to take a lot of resources from advertisers and from media owners and from agencies, and it's a tough market right now. So we've got to find out where that money's going to come from.
So, and now I'm going to go to the tech providers on the end. So Keith, Black Arrow, tech provider, deliverer of targeted things, VOD, now part of Cadent. Can you let us know what that means to now have the tech delivery side wrapped into a data-driven sales organization?
I think I've been doing this for a while, and it's like, I think you see a lot of scale in the US at 30 or 40 million homes, and like the tech does work, and people like Jamie at Sky and others kind of pioneered this, but I will say the tech works on linear, on IPTV, on VOD, on DVR, on network DVR, so like it's pretty proven. I think the hardest part about it in most of the world is that there is no 2 minutes like there is in the US. So the BDUs or the MVPDs or the Liberty Globals of the world don't have an advertising business. They have these incredible assets, which are basically like Facebook or Google type assets, which are persistent deterministic IDs for targeting, which I think are really valuable and can kind of make the TV ecosystem more vibrant. But I think the thing that we try to do is make a more symbiotic relationship between the content providers and the BDUs. I think that's critical because the BDUs have to bear a lot of the investment in the technology without a very clear ROI, and they got a lot of other things going on and limited resources. So really trying to bring together the content arm and the BDUs and kind of in a much more kind of value-added relationship rather than their traditional relationship was I sell you content and you guys distribute it for me on as many TV screens as possible.
So Claudio,
I would agree with that. I think the confluence of the entry of Facebook and Google and other walled gardens is creating an environment where this is a real opportunity for the programmers and the distributors to really enrich the broader ecosystem. We know that subscribers are not willing to pay much more from an ARPU perspective, so incremental dollars are going to have to come from other sources, and advanced advertising could be one of those sources.
So, I mean, we heard Jamie say it was approximately 100 million pounds, which I think roughly is 150 to 200 million Canadian dollars. So from this time last year until today, we've quadrupled the amount of capital that we'll actually need to make this happen.
He did say you could do it for a lot less today.
He did, and I think we agreed we were gonna throw him in the trunk of a Buick and make sure he doesn't leave until he stays and does it for us. So let's say we can do it. I think it's an open question. Keith, you just said it's up to the BDUs. And we see some BDUs making some investments, and the return, I mean, Jamie said he made his money back in 24 months or so. It seems like the investments have been happening here for quite a bit longer than 24 months. What else have you seen? I know you work globally also in South America and Europe.
Yeah, I would say we see a lot of activity in Europe right now, and I think a lot of it is related to kind of Sky has proven out the model. And I think you see a lot of fast followers moving in that direction for the same reasons, and they look at those proven results. I think, you know, the key is what is that economic relationship between what does the BDU get out of it, right? And like, I think there's a lot indirectly that they get out of it, which is if their content, you know, content costs are one of the fastest rising, biggest components of the business for them, and there's probably the most competitive market for content that's ever existed in the history of television. And so I think if you layer in a healthy advertising business with flat viewership growth, but actually can make that advertising, it helps kind of restrain programming costs. And then I think also there's new money they can make on data and those persistent IDs that I was talking about.
So I think what we've heard, and we heard earlier on the programmatic panel, and it's a toss-up and it may be controversial, but, and I'd like to hear from Valerie and Dave as well. If we have the right data now to do sophisticated enough planning, like we heard from Oscar and his panel, to improve the outcomes from traditional broadcast campaigns, I'm going to say it, do we need addressability then, or have we scienced the blank out of it to the point where just doing sophisticated broadcast plans is delivering on what the advertisers need?
So I think we can use a lot of our data, and we have enormous amounts of data, very high quality data, to kind of do two things in parallel. I don't think it's a binary kind of thing. I don't think you don't want to close off these kind of avenues. You can't listen to Jamie from Sky and not be kind of fabulously excited by that kind of potential. No, the other Jamie from Modi, you can't be not excited by that kind of potential. But that doesn't mean that, but there are building blocks, as I said, in place to get there first. And we definitely should go and sort of look at all those different things. It's funny, for those of you that don't know, I'm quite new to Bell in the world of TV. I've been in Bell for about 7 months now, and I did a big roadshow presentation of agencies earlier this year, because I'm leading a new team. I won't bore you with the details of it. But essentially, I go out and I do my presentation, and I've never heard such kind of concerted or consistent feedback from agencies that I heard about this particular round of presentations. And that feedback was, you guys, not just Bell, but the competition too, come out and you talk about data the whole time, and nothing ever happens. You talk about it the whole time, and nothing ever happens. Now, we've got data across, obviously, set-top boxes, but also, obviously, the mobility network, which is really kind of interesting for us. And obviously, within the highest legal and ethical framework, that's my counterpoint to yours. Yeah. So what we need to do is see how we can bring all these different things together. Now, we've got a plan about how we're going to do that, and we're going to be sharing that with our agency partners this quarter. Okay, so it's actual tangible things.
So you're going to be talking about it a bit more?
Sorry?
So there'll be, I mean, I think that's fascinating, that what you're hearing is talking about it doesn't seem to...
No, but before we've just talked about it in the abstract, now we have actual things which we believe can help our agency partners deliver value to our advertisers, and help us at the same time. The point about these things is that they're in early stages. There's a certain kind of plasticity to them, okay? And we want to mold these capabilities in conjunction with our partners.
I'm eager to hear.
Good.
Very eager. It's going to be.
He's new, but the data's been there for quite a long time. We just haven't seen it.
Well, we touched on it yesterday, didn't we, Dave?
No, keep it up.
I was going to say, we think all of this works better with an industry solution, and using all that data across the board. We quite frankly didn't want to wait for that future, so jumped into trialing and learning and figuring out best practices on a large scale in some cases and a small scale in some other cases. But for us, to go back to your original question, we talk a lot about, what we started to talk about now, is relevant reach. And so TV is a great mass reach, but with the new capabilities, you have the ability to refine that reach to match client objectives and campaigns and purpose. And we think that's really important for TV to evolve. So with linear optimization and data and the ability to plan better, we still think there's a place for addressable, just like we still think there's a place for cross-platform and dynamic and ad insertion on VOD and all those pieces. And then programmatic kind of sits on top, and it makes the process easier for our partners to use, to meet their objectives, as opposed to forcing them into the traditional, this is TV, you've got to buy it this way.
Okay.
So when you say programmatic, I mean, you're talking more, what you've just released, I think, last week, it's more, from our end, agency providing data on a given client and their segments, and then you saying what day parts and programs best fit that target segment. It's what I think the US upfronts will launch in the near few weeks, index buying almost. And that's their, I think Fox and ABC will, announce it. And that's almost their version to sort of what Comcast and DirecTV and everyone is doing in the addressable front. So we've got like the addressable over here, and then this index buying on a national level on the other side. And it's interesting because I think the networks are setting up, similar to some of the digital walled gardens. So it's going to be, we hand over the data, and then you report back what does well.
Our general hope is that you have access to choose a segment, and it may be using environics, but it's all appended to the viewing data. But the hope is that you can use your systems and append your data and execute it at your end, and it just runs through the system and optimizes. This isn't a way for us to hold more. Well, optimization is only reaching more of your true target in that sense. And then the only step to addressable is you cut out that wastage, and it works for some things, doesn't work for
I got to
others.
let David.
But it only works if it's across one platform for all vendors, right? Where we can truly optimize.
Okay. Meaning, right?
Again,
do we want
We
to
can't
name
be
names?
doing one deal with one vendor for their data,
Exactly.
exchanging that way, and then going to the other one. We can, but I don't know what the advantage of that is.
But that's inefficient.
Maybe you're buying a little bit better programming or more targeted. And it depends on the inventory that's available. So from what I understand and what I can figure out, a lot of it is going to be the inventory that they can't normally sell. So it's remnant inventory, if you want to call it that.
Is the R word.
It's not in the US, but it's the 2 minutes an hour that the local avails. I wouldn't call that premium inventory. It's not
So
network prime time.
the local avails on US networks being carried by the BDUs here do not appear as premium inventory to you, a buyer in Canada.
Not necessarily.
Our plan isn't to do remnant. Our plan is to offer the inventory so that you can make the best buy you can.
And in the U.S., different operators have allocated different types of inventory. In some cases, the inventory is allocated across all day parts and across a large number of networks. So it doesn't have to be just remnant inventory. And the other point of that is that there is viewing by quality audiences across a broad range of inventory, even inventory that today is not considered to garnish higher rating points, but there are, if the right audience is there, why wouldn't you be interested?
Dave? No, you're the best for this. This is great because you actually represent the spigot of spend in this market, and you don't seem sold.
Well, I'm sold on data-based buying and audience targeting. It's different for every client, though. I mean, some clients want the true premium inventory. They want the big primetime shows. Is that going to be programmatic or addressable?
Yeah, I don't think this is a replacement for like the upfronts or things like that, or for people that are really focused on a particular alignment with a particular type of premium content, right? But there are other advertisers, including advertisers outside of the traditional TV space, that are more interested in reaching their definition of their specific advertiser-defined audience. And for those advertisers, programmatic is actually a decent fit.
It's about offering choice.
Yeah.
So, but a lot of, and Valerie, I think you have a perspective also on context, right? And you probably do as well, Dave, that high-end advertisers generally want to be associated with high-end programs in prime time, and that's part of their brand image. And some of what comes out of the programmatic planning processes have you running against horror, thriller, and suspense at 3 a.m. And it's sort of hard for a brand to believe that this is where their strategic target is lurking. So how do you reconcile that, let's say, traditional way of buying context and sort of brand safety in that way with the new data-driven approach?
Well, it's one we were talking about earlier. And it's not going to go away. I mean, I think in advertising, and we talk about data, it's always going to be a combination of art and science. And if you let data led activation just be at what the facts and figures say, and without any sort of intuition and intuitive gut feeling, that will go away. And you're going to have, just like you do now, you have base exposure media, and then you layer in, let's say, experiential or rich sponsorships. You're going to do the same thing, whether it's programmatic, addressable. You're not going to put everything into one basket. So I think it's cumulative and it's additive, but you're not going to put everything into what we're talking about up here in this space.
I think I've gone on long enough. I'd like to know if there are questions from the audience. This is an excellent group to be querying. Does anybody have anything for these folks, or I'll just continue? Here's one.
Given that Jamie, the female Jamie, spent on average $1.9 million on a campaign 3 years in, and Canada usually represents about 10% on a good day of what occurs in the US, it's hard to believe that this could pay itself out in Canada. This is for Bell and Chorus.
Please. Yeah. When you have those questions that you've not prepared for, that's one of those, therefore a good question. I think, again, look, before we get into, obviously this idea of kind of, addressable at household level is really fascinating. What do we actually need to do about it? We need to proceed in a kind of orderly, methodical way and do precisely the kind of sums and business cases that you're suggesting that we should do. What we've been doing is working a lot with our data science team to look at how much we should be investing, what the costs will be, what the timelines will be, what the deliverables will be, and so on and so forth. So yeah, that's one of the things that we're going to have to work out as we go through. But before then, what do you really need to do? First of all, you need to really understand your data and get it in a place where it can be analysed. Then you need to kind of build some kind of audience segmentation. After that, some kind of digital programmatic platform. After that, some means of dynamic ad insertion. And then overlaying that, you want kind of reporting tools so you can see how well all this has gone. We're actually at the stage where we're making actionable progress against all of those different things. Okay, but in the business case, that kind of thing will come out. And I'm not trying to fluff around and not answer your question. It's just that I actually haven't thought of it before, and I can't give you a clear answer.
Are you satisfied with that answer?
I could make something up.
Okay, excellent. Are there some other questions? Excellent. Jamie West.
So this question is more for the agency folks. With the increased clarity on digital advertising, somebody has to be very proud of the fact that only 60% of their traffic is non-human. The rise of that problem, why are you not more supportive of addressable TV and more keen to the fact
I don't see that the two are necessarily related.
So
Not understanding the question.
I
Is
think
there a
the question is non-human traffic and viewability issues that you find in the IP and the digital video world are substantial, and they're substantial to your advertisers who are sometimes paying for fraudulent impressions or things that aren't seen, whereas in television,
We never
particularly,
pay for fraudulent.
you don't pay for fraudulent. That's never happened. That's good. I think next time, Dave, you just say, I don't know. But I think he brings up an excellent point that there are some issues around digital video today, which are, there are good companies out there, some in this room who are trying to address it, but they persist, whereas this screen in the middle of the living room doesn't happen to suffer from those maladies. Jamie, was that close? Okay.
We are seeing those challenges, and we're combating those, and with IAB and seeing, what is being done in the space, whether it's looking at, site protections, whitelist, blacklist, and we're, putting in factors of viewability, and bot fraud is huge. I think it's really on the radar of everybody in this room. So to say that the digital world is perfect and the first screen, the big screen is is not. I don't think it's saying that this world over here everything is shiny and all dollars should be going there or coming back to TV. I think we have to understand the merit of both, and if there are issues, we confront them and analyze them and deal with them. We don't ignore them.
So from the tech vendors, so either of you, what is your position around this? Because it seems to strike a nerve, which is awesome if you're trying to manage a panel.
I think is like, if I remember the numbers they presented this morning, where basically in a lot of markets television spend is down. I mean, people have seen what's happened in the U.S. market in terms of live traditional television every year. It's like down 10%. Like, if you just do the same thing, and we see moving money into digital, which is, it's good for other providers, but not necessarily for the TV ecosystem or the traditional players in that. Like, if you just do nothing, it doesn't look good in 5 years, right? And the second thing I think is like, what I would love to see is like, really, we talk a lot about this with our clients, is like, if you could reduce the commercial load and improve the overall TV experience, but have more personalized ads, and I realize that's a transitional thing, but I think like, with how much viewing happens on Netflix right now, and especially in prime time, and how much, like shows on HBO which have no ads, and you kind of look at younger people, I think the tolerance for ads, look at ad blocking, right? I think the tolerance for large amounts of commercial time, and I think that COO of Fox said this last year, is like the old 18 minutes of ads in a live show with fast forward disabled, it's not going to fly anymore, so you need some new models.
Which is why they bought Truex, right?
Yeah.
So now there's the Truex format for online, and I think it was an announcement this week also that commercial payloads would be reduced on
I think it's worth looking at, because I think you could. What we look at is like, you really want to know when you have kind of ad loads that are pushing tune away above kind of danger thresholds for high value shows. That's like the last thing in the world you want to do, is lose a viewer, because how hard is it to build viewership with new programming right now?
But Jamie in the back can tell us how hard it is to build new viewership for programming, right? So it sounds like she would know what the payload thing is. Do we have look, there's no question it's not broken, but there are options.
I think it's undercounted also. The value of TV is grossly understated today. In fact, when you look at true cross-platform attribution, where it's not just the digital platforms that are included, but TV is also included, you see that TV tends to lift all boats. So it lifts all those digital channels. So a lot of the credit that today is going to Facebook or to Google on search in particular, sometimes a large portion of that is being driven by the TV campaigns. And we've worked with a number of attribution providers, different attribution providers, some of which have been acquired. Adometry was acquired by Google, Converter was acquired by AOL, but we've also worked with some of the others that are still independent. And in every case, we have seen the same scenario, that TV tends to lift all boats. And so I think the use of data to validate outcomes, whether that's targeted impressions as defined by the advertiser or actual sales outcomes, is really what will keep TV very relevant, especially in light of some of the challenges that digital is having. I think TV has not done a good job it's sort of rested in its laurels in terms of its ability to deliver great reach, but now it has to step up and be able to demonstrate its value to the marketing ecosystem, but it's there to be had. I mean, we've seen plenty of evidence that the value is really there.
So I'm going to go to Valerie and Dave. Is television a performance advertising medium?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. We have research studies that have proven its merit. We've had some issues and research where, you know, breakthrough is not at norm. So we've had both. It's, once again, the black and white issue, right? It's proving out the effectiveness for a given advertiser with creative in mind, and the given product that is being sold. So I think there's so many factors, but television is a brand building success story. But the way it's being currently measured, I've been in this business for some time, and the measurement has stayed still, and it's time that, you know, average program season ratings.
Where are
really.
our measurement people?
I'm just happy
Because I know they're in the room.
I'm just happy that Stuart Garvey's now committed to commercial trading and trading on commercial minutes. That's fantastic.
Is that, yeah, committed?
He said this morning.
Okay, well, it's good to be committed. I guess, I mean, yeah. Well, actually, I'd like another really tough question if you have one.
Pardon? So the whole thing. So in a world where we say that everyone's avoiding ads, we pile more money into digital channels where it is really easy to avoid ads. And I'm not sure that's right or wrong. I struggle with the logic sometimes. And yes, there are great things in digital, and it does great stuff. But we kind of have you're right, Valerie, it's not binary, but we have this sort of mixed narrative in lots of different areas. And I wonder what the panel's thought is on that.
I agree with Stuart.
Well, I think we've mistaken the ability to measure for effectiveness, right? And so digital has great ability to measure outcomes, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's the most effective medium or that it doesn't need to be complemented with traditional medium. And then, so I think what we need to get back to now is measuring everything and assigning proper levels of attribution, then we'll really have a better understanding.
So are they out of line now? Do you feel like we don't have a uniform way of sort of understanding attribution?
The answer is we don't know, right? We don't know because there isn't enough true cross-platform measurement going on. In the studies that we've been directly involved with, we have seen that TV more than carries its weight.
But this is where it comes back to addressability, because I think we saw from both of the Jamies quite a lot of attribution and understanding of direct impact on sales, not just brand lift and purchase intent. So is addressability going to, is it an important, let's just say, step along the way to getting our attribution models
you need to think of
normalized?
addressability as having two components. One is a measurement component, which impacts not just the ability to target, but the ability to understand what people are watching and then be able to do attribution of performance, whether that's sales results or brand lift or other things, right? So, and that type of measurement can help the digital, the linear sales, the VOD sales. It can impact across the board. The actual event of targeting on a one-to-one basis it will take a lot longer to scale. Particularly, it's easier in some platforms, but those platforms don't necessarily have the level of impression scale that linear platforms have. So that will take some time. And it serves a different purpose. I think Jamie really hit it in terms of being able to differentiate between customers and prospects, right? That's a very high value application for an advertiser, right? Or being able to use it for brands that don't have the budget for a linear TV campaign so that they can target a very specific segment of the population, because now they're not doing it on a mass scale basis, they're doing it on a more targeted basis. Those are incremental opportunities to television. And I think advertisers really get this part. I think we need to put the blocks in place, as you described, which is first is measurement, starting with sort of commercial measurement, but the measurement at a household level that then can be married to first and third party data so that you can understand the impact of television in relation to other channels. And then beyond that, start to worry about how do we make as much addressability, how do we put more addressability into place within the constraints, the economic constraints that it brings.
So Barry, I want to know from Barry, what are you mentioned a couple of trials that you're doing.
Yeah.
How many of those are meeting what Claudio just described in terms of measurement that she needs to be able to justify spend?
I think we're starting to see some really good measurement. I think to David's point earlier, that measurement will mean something when it's spread across the industry. But for now, we're learning how to use it. And we're learning how to use it, and agencies and advertisers and brands are learning how to use it. And that's an important step. What we found is if you turned on full addressable tomorrow, the system might not be able to handle it, because I think someone said this morning that if you get the segment wrong, you miss your target entirely. And so doing something like linear optimization, where you can figure out your segment and still get some spill into the traditional demos, helps you to start to figure that out, because TV buyers buy age and sex and some environment and maybe some qualifiers. Planners and brands work in segmentation, and it's a matter of all those groups starting to talk the same language so that we can measure outcomes on an even basis and make sure everyone's driving towards the same result.
And I think both Jamie said it and Paul from Cablevision said it. This is a journey, right? And what's important is to get going on that journey, one step in front of the other. And I think that's starting to happen here. It's lagging relative to some other markets. I really admire what Sky is doing. But I think the opportunity is there. And it's not a single opportunity. It's an opportunity to improve the overall delivery of linear. It's an opportunity to sustain the value of television. And for marketers, it's an opportunity to understand the impact that television has across all of their channels.
I think Mr. Marcus is saying some very smart things.
And the other Marcus is brilliant.
I knew putting you two next to each other was just an enormous mistake. Again, I'm coming back to Dave and Valerie, who sort of sit at the intersection of these brands and the sophistication of your customers. Do you find that you're doing quite a lot of education with your customers to help them sort of more easily sort of move into these places, or?
Absolutely. The education piece is huge. I think the two terms, addressability and programmatic, have been so widely used and different meanings. I think if we asked 10 people in this area, we'd all come up with different definitions. I think for linear TV, programmatic, I doubt we'll ever go into the RTB space. If it does, adios. But I think on the reserve side, I think there's some merit there. But once again, I don't think the entire television buy will ever go to completely programmatic. And I think like we were saying earlier, it's certainly the programmatic space in the digital. We've seen some lessons learned and some huge hiccups, and so we're learning from the digital, and we don't want to do what we've learned there to linear. So it's definitely talking to our clients. The first thing that they always talk about in the room now is data. Tell me we have lots of it here. They've segmented their customer base into slice and dice across numerous segments. They want to know what to do with it, but in the space of across media, what is the most optimal usage of that? I think what we're all missing here, and I mentioned it just a little earlier, is the creative piece. Are we ready for the numerous assets that must be deployed in the creative sphere to really be relevant to those households or the one-to-one in the digital space to make it relevant? That goes back to context again. So I'd say education is huge with our clients. It's huge even internally. We don't know, certainly even if they're ready to do it, we have to put in our own resources and infrastructure to make it happen.
Can we get back to television never being traded on our TV? Because that was one of the best things I've heard all day. And like I I actually felt some people sort of shift in their seats when that was said. So that's a fascinating thing. I want to get back to creative, though, real quick. We did hear from Modi that typical 30s for brands are performing pretty well for activation, which I still think is a huge takeaway. We're going to end it here. I want to see if there are any last questions. No? Mr. Block? It's your chance. Okay. With that, I really want to thank both of the Marcuses, both of our tech providers, and the entire super panel. So thank you.